Look at this picture. At first look, it appears to be just a simple formal photo from the 1860s. Three young women in beautiful silk dresses, sitting straight with calm faces. The sort of picture you might pass by in a museum and not notice twice. But in 2019, a historian spotted something unusual. It was in the way the sisters placed their hands. No one had noticed it for more than 150 years. What she learned changed our understanding of resistance, survival, and the quiet fight that happened right in front of everyone. These three women were not only sitting for a photo, they were sending a secret signal. A signal their captors never figured out. If you enjoy stories like this, please subscribe to the channel and press the like button. You will not want to miss the next part. The fall rain beat hard on the windows of Harrison's auction house in Richmond, Virginia, while Dr. Amelia Grant looked over a group of Civil War period photographs that were up for sale. At 43 years old, she had studied American history at Howard University for 20 years, but nothing had gotten her ready for what she would soon discover. The group of photos came from the estate of an antiques dealer who had died recently. He had collected photographs from the antebellum South for 50 years. Most of them were ordinary. Stiff pictures of rich families, shots of big plantation homes, and formal events captured in silver and glass. Then Amelia's fingers paused on one special photograph. Three young black women were seated in a fancy parlor, wearing silk gowns that would cost a lot even for wealthy white people. Their hair looked perfect, their bodies held straight, but their hands made Amelia's breath stop. Each sister had her hands in a different spot on her lap. The oldest one put her right hand over her left, with fingers a little open. The middle sister's hands were locked together, but her thumbs crossed in a strange way. The youngest kept one hand flat and shaped the other one carefully against the dark cloth of her skirt. Amelia knew about hand poses in old Victorian photos. They were usual, often set by photographers to make the picture look nice. But these poses seemed planned, like a code, on purpose. She flipped the photo over. On the back, in old faded writing, it said, "The Kingsley Sisters, Charleston, 1863. "Found something good?" asked Marcus Webb, the auction house manager, as he came up beside her. "These women," Amelia said, keeping her eyes on the picture. "Do you know anything about them?" Marcus gave a small shrug. "The last owner left no papers. We thought they were free women of color, maybe from a rich family. The dresses show they had money." Amelia looked at the image once more. Something felt wrong. In 1863, Charleston was strong Confederate land. The thought of three black women having such a fancy photo taken, dressed so well during the worst of the Civil War, seemed nearly impossible. "I want to buy this photograph," she said in a low voice. "The whole collection is sold together as one group." Amelia raised her eyes to him. "Then I will buy the whole collection." Back at her office in Howard University, Amelia fixed the photograph to her research wall and started her search. The first question was easy. Who were the Kingsley sisters? She began with census papers from Charleston in the 1860s. Free black families were not common in South Carolina, and rich ones were even harder to find. After 3 days of looking, she found nothing. No Kingsley family showed up in any record she checked. She looked further into church papers, land deals, and tax lists. Still nothing. "It's like they never existed," she said quietly to her graduate helper, David, who was now just as interested in the puzzle. "Maybe Kingsley was not their true name," David said. "If they were keeping a secret, they could have used a different name." Amelia thought about it. That made sense. But why would three black women hide who they were in a photograph? And who took the picture anyway? She looked at the photo with a magnifying glass, hunting for any special marks. Old photographers often put their name or studio stamp on the card. Then she saw it. In the bottom right corner, so small you could miss it, was a tiny raised seal. J.R. Whitmore, Charleston. A fast search showed that Jonathan Whitmore ran a photography shop in Charleston from 1858 to 1867. He was white, from an important family, and took pictures of Charleston's high society during the war. But why would a white photographer from a Confederate family make such a detailed portrait of 3 black women? Divida. Amelia looked more into Whitmore's life and found something surprising. After the war, he went north to Boston and joined abolitionist groups. He gave a lot of money to freedmen's schools. He switched sides, Amelia said, looking at the computer screen. Or maybe he was never on the side people fought. The next day she booked a plane to Charleston. The answers were not in computer files or libraries. They were in the city where the photo was made, hidden in a past that Charleston liked to ignore. Charleston in October still felt warm, with thick wet air and the smell of magnolia flowers. Amelia stayed in a small hotel close to the old district and went to the Charleston County Public Library's South Carolina section. The archivist, an older woman named Dorothy, listened as Amelia told her about the research. Jonathan Whitmore, Dorothy said, her eyes getting narrow. I have not heard that name in a long time. My grandmother used to talk about him. Amelia moved closer. Your grandmother knew him, knew of him. She was young during Reconstruction, but she remembered the stories. Whitmore was not only a photographer. According to family tales, he was much more risky to the Confederacy. Dorothy took Amelia to a locked part of the archive, where old papers were kept safe in special cases. She brought out a small leather notebook. Its pages were yellow and old. This came in anonymously in 1952, Dorothy said. We did not know who owned it until a researcher in the 1980s said the writing was Whitmore's. Amelia opened the notebook slowly. The pages had short, hidden notes about packages sent and paths checked. Then she saw an entry from March 1863. The 3 sisters had their portrait taken today. The message is inside. If our friends up north read the code, the next trip will go as planned. God keep them safe. Amelia's hands shook. He was using photos to send secret messages. Dorothy gave a slow nod. The Underground Railroad did not stop when the war started. It changed, and Whitmore helped. Amelia took pictures of the page and kept reading. Whitmore wrote that the sisters were not called Kingsley. Their real names were Clara, Ruth, and Viola. They had run away from a plantation in Georgia 3 years before and lived in Charleston with false names, working as seamstresses for a kind white family. But they were more than people who escaped. They were guides for others. Amelia spent the next week following every mention of Clara, Ruth, and Viola in Whitmore's notebook. The photographer wrote everything down carefully, not just who he photographed, but the whole system they built together. The hand positions were not by chance. They were a kind of language. Whitmore's notes said the sisters made a picture code using hand places, finger shapes, and things in the background. Each mix gave special details: safe places to stay, risky paths, times to move, names of helpers, and names of dangers. The photos went through a chain of abolitionists who acted like art buyers, traveling sellers, and even some Confederates who secretly changed sides. The pictures went past guards and checks without anyone suspecting, because they looked like normal family portraits. It was hidden right there for everyone to see. Amelia told David on a video call. The Confederates saw what they thought they would see. Black women in nice dresses, maybe dressed up by their owners for a special picture. They never thought these women were sending army secrets under their eyes. David stayed quiet for a second. How many photos are there? Amelia looked at her notes. Whitmore's notebook talks about at least 40 portraits from 1862 to 1865. Most had the sisters, but some showed other people in the group. Each one carried different news. And the one you bought at the auction? Amelia stared at the photo on her wall. According to the March 1863 note, this picture said the Combahee River path was safe. 3 months later, Harriet Tubman led the Combahee River Raid and freed more than 750 enslaved people. David understood right away. Are you saying the sisters helped with the raid? I am saying their photo was probably part of the information that made it work. Amelia's search took her to the family of the white people who hid the sisters in Charleston. The family's old papers were kept by a great-great-granddaughter named Helen, who lived in a fixed-up old home outside the city. Helen was in her 70s, With sharp eyes and careful ways, she had guarded her family's mixed past for years and did not like sharing with strangers. "My family members were Confederates," she said, serving tea in her nice parlor. At least that is what people around them thought. The real story was harder. She said her great-great-grandmother Elizabeth ran a sewing business that hired free black women. It looked like a normal shop, but really it hid one of the smartest spy systems of the Civil War. Elizabeth's husband was a Confederate officer. Helen went on. He knew about army moves, supply lines, and war plans. He gave that information to Elizabeth, who put it into sewing patterns and cloth designs. The seamstresses sewed those patterns into the clothes they made. "And the photographs?" Amelia asked. Helen nodded. The dresses in Whitmore's pictures were not just pretty, they were messages. The lace design on a collar, the number of buttons on a sleeve, the way ribbons were placed, everything had meaning. Amelia's thoughts moved fast. The sisters were not only using hand codes, their whole dresses carried the message. How did people read the information? Amelia asked. Helen stood up and went to an old desk. She took out a small, worn book and gave it to Amelia. "This was my great-great-grandmother's code book. It shows how to understand the patterns." Amelia opened the book with shaking hands. It had clear drawings of dress parts next to what they meant. A rose shape meant safe travel. Straight lines up and down meant danger. A certain lace setup told how many people were ready to move. The sisters had not just sent short notes. They sent full escape plans. With the code book, Amelia went back to the photo of the three sisters and started to read every part. It took days of slow work, matching Whitmore's notebook with Elizabeth's codebook and old records. The hidden message in the March 1863 photo was bigger than she thought. Clara's hand pose showed a time period. The first week of June. Ruth's locked hands with crossed thumbs pointed to a place, the Combahee River ferry spot. Viola's flat hand and bent fingers gave a number, about 700. The dress designs added more facts. The lace on Clara's collar said Union boats would give protection. The buttons on Ruth's sleeves showed local helpers were ready. The ribbons on Viola's top named the leader of the plan, a woman called Moses. Harriet Tubman. Amelia leaned back, feeling the weight of it all. The Combahee River Raid was one of the best successes led by a woman in American history. Tubman took Union soldiers up the river and freed more than 750 enslaved people in one night. Historians always asked how Tubman got such clear details about Confederate guards, mine spots, and where enslaved people lived on plantations. Now Amelia knew. The information came from a group of black women who worked where everyone could see them, hiding secrets in photos and dress designs, sent through a system so smart the Confederacy never guessed. They were spies, Amelia said softly. The best spies of the Civil War, and history forgot them all. She thought about the statues of Confederate leaders, the school books that praised army planners, the museums full of guns and uniforms. Yet these three women, who used their minds and bravery to free hundreds, disappeared from memory until now. The question that stayed with Amelia was what happened to Clara, Ruth, and Viola after the war. Whitmore's notebook stopped in 1865, and Elizabeth's papers said nothing about the sisters after Richmond fell. She started looking through Freedmen's Bureau records, which kept track of formerly enslaved people during Reconstruction. The papers were broken, missing parts, and kept in different places. But after weeks of searching, she found something that stopped her heart. A paper from Savannah, Georgia, in November 1865, listed three sisters asking for marriage papers on the same day. Clara, Ruth, and Viola. It said they came from Charleston and worked as teachers. Amelia followed them to a freedmen's school started by Northern church groups in Savannah. The school's papers, kept in the university archive in Atlanta, had lists of teachers, students, and yearly reports. Clara taught reading and writing to grown-ups who were not allowed to learn in slavery. Ruth taught numbers and money skills to help students build their own lives. Viola taught music, and one report said she had a special talent for codes and secret writing, which she used to help children learn to read. The sisters kept going with their work, changing from spies to teachers, using the same cleverness that freed hundreds to help thousands escape, not knowing how to read. Amelia also found a letter Clara wrote to a helper in the North in 1867. "We were never written about in the war stories. We were not leaders or government people. We were seamstresses and people in photos. But we knew freedom needed more than fighting. It needed smart thinking, waiting, and the bravery to stay hidden. We do not want fame. We only want to make sure those who come later are never unseen again." Amelia read the letter many times, finding deeper meaning each time. The sisters knew they would be forgotten. They accepted it and kept working. Amelia's work led her to people alive today who came from the three sisters. Using family history records, DNA tests, and many phone calls, she found family branches that went from Savannah to Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, and Atlanta. The first person she reached was Michael, a retired mail worker in Chicago, whose great-great-grandmother was Ruth. He had never heard about the photos or secret codes. "My family always said our old relatives were teachers," he told Amelia on the phone. "We knew they lived through slavery, but the full story got lost. People did not talk about those days." In Detroit, she met Patricia, a school principal who came from Clara. Patricia cried when Amelia showed her the photo. "She looks like my daughter," Patricia said quietly. "The same eyes, the same way she holds her head. I never knew what she looked like until now." The strongest moment was with James, a musician in Atlanta who came from Viola. He had his great-great-great-great-grandmother's love for music without knowing where it started. "She taught music?" he asked, looking at the photo from the Freedmen's School. "She taught codes through music," Amelia said. "Songs with secret words, beats that carried information. She made resistance into something beautiful." James stayed quiet for a while. Then he took his guitar and played a tune his grandmother taught him long ago. A tune passed down for years with no reason given. "I always wondered where this song came from," he said softly. "Now I know." Embers came together for the first time because Amelia asked them. They met in Charleston, near where Whitmore's studio used to be. They stood in a circle, each holding a copy of the photo, linked by a past that almost disappeared. Amelia wrote about her findings in a history journal, with clear pictures of the photo, Whitmore's notebook pages, and Elizabeth's code book. Scholars answered quickly and with excitement. Historians called it one of the biggest new finds about Civil War resistance in many years. But Amelia wanted more than school praise. She went to the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture with an idea: buy the photo and make an exhibit about the hidden spy networks of the Civil War. The museum said yes. The exhibit, called Hidden in Plain Sight: The Secret War of the Seamstress Spies, opened 18 months later. It showed the real photo of Clara, Ruth, and Viola, plus Whitmore's notebook, Elizabeth's code book, and many other items found after Amelia's work began. The main part was a hands-on display, where people could try decoding photos with the sisters' system, feeling for themselves the cleverness needed to fight back when even reading was not allowed. On the opening night, the descendants of the three sisters stood together in front of the display. Michael, Patricia, James, and 17 other relatives from different places came to remember their family. Patricia spoke for everyone. For more than 150 years, our grandmothers were unseen. History wrote about the generals and leaders, the fights and agreements. But it forgot the women who sewed secrets into dresses, who stood for photos that held hidden words, who risked their lives to help others become free. Tonight, they are unseen no longer. The photo of Clara, Ruth, and Viola hung in a special spot, lit softly to show every detail of their fine dresses, their calm faces, and their careful hands, hands that spoke a language of courage, hands that changed history. Amelia went back to Charleston 1 year After the exhibit started, she walked through the old streets, past the big houses and tourist rides, past the statues and signs that told one side of the city's story. She stopped at the corner where Whitmore's studio once stood. The building was gone, now a small hotel, but a little sign was put there because Amelia asked. It read, "On this site stood the photography studio of Jonathan Whitmore, where pictures of resistance were made during the Civil War. The main people in his most important work, Clara, Ruth, and Viola, used coded hand positions and dress patterns to send information that helped free hundreds of enslaved people. Their bravery stayed hidden for over 150 years. Amelia touched the sign softly, then walked to the water where the Combahee River moved toward the ocean. She thought about all the other old photos sitting in storage rooms and forgotten boxes, seen as plain portraits. How many still hold messages no one has read? How many other stories wait to be found? She thought about the sisters, who knew they would fade from memory and kept going anyway. Where? They understood that some brave acts are done not for praise, but for the simple, strong belief that freedom counts, even when nobody sees. And she thought about the photograph itself, that small piece of silver and glass that lived through wars, being ignored, and the purposeful hiding of black history. It waited quietly for someone to look long enough to see its true meaning. Not just a picture, but a statement, a proof of the strength of normal people who would not stay quiet, who found ways to speak when words were not allowed, who kept their fight hidden in plain sight until the world was ready to notice. Amelia took out her phone and took a picture of the sign, the river, and the sky. Then she sent it to the family members with a short message. They are remembered. They will not be forgotten.